Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast, part of the Bet Rivers Network. I hope everybody survived wherever you were. I guess from DC to last night up in Massachusetts, survived the crazy weather of the last couple of days. 30 inches on Long Island of snow. Uh, you know, 2 feet everywhere. 30 inches, I think, was in a couple of spots was the high. Um, I didn't think the storm, did as much damage as it possibly could have, so I think we came away, at least in the areas I've seen so far, and that's only Long Island, but, I have not seen the amount of damage that could have been predicted when you think about winds reaching 84 miles an hour, which it did in Montauk. Uh, I think we came out of it pretty good. I mean, I know there were a lot of power outages, Mons, our producer, he lost his power last night for the whole night, which is tough with a bunch of little kids. There were more outages in New Jersey than there were even on Long Island. So Long Island took it pretty well on the chin, to be honest with you, considering how bad this storm really was for everybody. So uh, it will make everyone very much appreciate spring this year. I think more so than in recent years because, we've gotten used to having very, very mild winters. Number one, this winter's been extremely cold. Number two, for a variety of reasons, I haven't spent as much time in the South as I would have liked, but that happens. But I wasn't here for the first storm. I was here for this one, and this one was really just overwhelming. It was so big. Uh, but I hope everybody came out of it okay, and we can start to look towards everything that's right around the corner. The basketball, the Big East, um, and especially baseball, which, when you watch the games in spring training and it's sunny and, you know, sun's, you know, beautiful afternoon, it makes you long for those days of summer, which are right around the corner. So, hey, better days are coming. Now, before I get to the emails, and I'll get to a handful of them, let me first tell you that sign up for the Mike Francesa newsletter, where you can get exclusive content as well as opportunities to win unique prizes. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter already, go to MikeFrancesAPodcast.com and get the free weekly newsletter delivered right to your inbox. So, hey, doesn't cost you a thing. Check it out. Now, as these teams prepare and we're just about ready, I think it's March 3rd, the interruption for the baseball classic, which I am not a fan of. And I would be very, very against if I were an owner. Um, I believe the Met number is, as an example, 17 players are leaving. I mean, uh, it gives some kids who are here an opportunity to play. All right, if you're someone who's a bullpen arm, you might get more looks. If you're someone who doesn't usually get a lot of chances, and this might be your one big golden opportunity, well, this is your year because you're going to get some games. Split squad games. They got to fill out the roster, so you're going to get a chance to play. Um, I'm not a big fan of it and I think you have to be very protective. Like Scooble's just going to pitch one game and that's out, and then he's out. So he's going to pitch 3 innings and he's out. I mean, that's basically it. So what's the big to do from that standpoint? But getting past that and getting ready for the start of the season, which will come quickly because it's in March. Matter of fact, late March, where the weather will not be conducive up here at all to playing baseball, but they know that. Um, the Mets, everyone's zeroing in on right field, and rightly so. Uh, I don't think Benj is gonna wind up being the everyday right fielder. I would be surprised if he breaks camp as the guy. I think you have to wait for him. I don't think they have anybody on the roster that I would be comfortable with becoming someone's name that I would put in there 5 days a week. Um, I understand, you can put Beatty out there. Uh, you're gonna try and get him into the lineup some places. I would hope they would give Vientos a real chance here and not turn him into a spot player. I think if you turn Vientos into a spot player, trade him and get something for him because all you're gonna do is devalue him going forward. I don't think the way he operates and the way he approaches his hitting, I don't think he can play once or twice a week. I think it'll be a disaster playing once or twice a week. I think he needs to be committed to in a very much an everyday lineup. His spot would be obviously DH. Okay, he's not a fielder. We know that, but I think the Mets are really missing a chance for him to be developed into a big time bat as a DH. And I understand that down the road Soto's going to be the DH. I understand that. Okay, but that's a couple of years away. Soto's gonna wanna go to the outfield for a couple more years. So that's years away, and Vientos could become an everyday DH. Now I'm going on the premise that Polanco's gonna play a lot of first base. Okay, if that turns out to be something that doesn't work out, which I would be shocked if that were the case. I don't think that will be the case. He might not be Keith Hernandez, but you wouldn't expect him to be. But I think you'll have him, and I think he's gonna be a surprisingly good situational hitter. See, I think what I like what the Mets did here is I think they really went and got guys who are gamers. They've improved their defense vastly, although we understand you're still putting some guys in positions they haven't played before, so that's always tricky. But they've improved their defense in positions. Um, see, I can't take a guy like Taylor and put him in right field. You can't live with his offense in a corner outfield position. It's just not there. He's not a corner outfielder. He really does not produce like a corner outfielder. You can live with him in center field. And that's why you can live with Robert's numbers in center field as long as he catches the ball. Um, you can't live with a guy not hitting in the corner outfield spot. Your corner outfielders have to have some pop. I'm sorry, okay? If they don't, you've really diminished your productivity if you don't have some pop out of your corner outfielders. That's all there is to it. I mean, those are offensive positions, and you got to have some pop there, or be a 320 hitter. I mean, so or a guy gets on base a ton of times, but I don't think they have anybody who adequately fills that role in the outfield. I would like to see them go get somebody who could play there every day. I'm figuring that it takes Benj another year to become an everyday player. I think it's too much to put on his plate if you're going to try and compete and really try to be a playoff team this year. But I like a lot of things about this team. They clearly have some pitching now. They clearly have gotten some gamers, and I think adding guys that you see late in games, in tight games, watching Bichette and watching Polanco and Simmons and guys like this, they are going to be very, very solid players in tight situations, and I think you're gonna see them be a very different team this year from that standpoint. I think, they're gonna be very strong in that regard. Um, and obviously, you're anchoring it with Lindor once he's healthy, and obviously one of the best offensive players in the sport in the middle of your lineup, whether you bet him 2 or 3. I personally would prefer Lindor, uh, Bichette, and then, uh, Soto. I know this whole idea of batting guys 2, and, you know, that's such a big thing, which I'm not a real fan of because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It really doesn't. Not to put your best best hitter in a spot where he's gonna get more traffic in front of him. The same thing with Judge. I bet Judge 3rd, I don't bet him 2nd. You're not gonna have anybody that can protect either one of these guys when they don't wanna pitch to them. You don't have if you're the Yankees, you don't have another Judge in your lineup. So when they don't wanna pitch to Judge, they're not gonna pitch to him. Nobody behind him is going to say, "Oh, well, I'm not pitching to Judge. I'm gonna pitch to Judge because I'm not going after X." That's not happening. Same thing with Soto. There's nobody behind him that's gonna protect him on that team. Not when you don't wanna pitch to him. That's all there is to it. So they're gonna when you don't wanna pitch to him, they're not gonna pitch to him. So that's why I like to see them get more traffic in front of them and let them knock in more runs. So that's why I would like the idea of on both teams, batting these guys 3rd rather than 2nd. That would be my preference. If it were my team, that's the way I would go about it without any question. But when you look at what the Mets are gonna put out there, and again, they do have some question marks. I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any doubt about that. They still have some things they have to answer. But when you see uh, how good a player, how good a hitter Bichette is, I mean, he is legitimately. He's not a great player, but he is a really good situational hitter. He gets quality at bats, especially in big spots. I think that will be a big positive. Um, One thing I can tell you is, and I haven't looked into yet, I've had a lot of fans contact me, and they really want me to go to town on Gotham Sports. Now, I haven't used Gotham Sports a lot yet because I get everything anyway. So I haven't had a game where I couldn't go to. I guess there would have been one a couple days ago, but most of the times I get the game presented to me somewhere else that I don't have to go to Gotham Sports to get the game, um, because of the packages that I have. But that listen, watch everything, so I have all the packages. So um, it hasn't really impacted me, but I know a lot of the fans are irate about it, and they keep contacting me and saying, "You got to go after Gotham Sports." Well, I have to first frequent myself. I just actually got the app today to look at it, and I will start to check it out, because, people have been begging me to get involved with it, and they're like, "Oh, we need you to get on Gotham," and I'm like, "I don't have anything to get on them about yet, I'm sorry, I haven't paid attention to them." So, I will check it out, and then I will see what's going on. As far as the Yankees, the only thing I would say is this: you keep hearing the same, "Oh, they're the same team, they're the same team, they're the same team, they're the same team." Okay, listen, that's pretty much true. We know that. The question that you have with this team is, what is their plan with Jones and Dominguez? I mean, that is really what it comes down to. See, Jones is gonna be 25 in May. If you aren't gonna play him, you should have got rid of him. Put him in a package and get something big. Go get a big pitcher. Go out and get a big player. Package these guys because you're gonna let them die on the vine. If these guys have to play. Now, I'm not as high on Dominguez as a lot of guys are. He doesn't hit right-handed. He doesn't field. To me, he's a good, attractive left-handed side switch hitter who can be exciting, can hit the ball a mile. We know that. It can run, but he doesn't field, and he's 23 years old to be a DH, and he is a DH. Are they going to give him enough chances to be who they think he can be? And if they're not, then all you're gonna do is to value him to the point where you're gonna wind up having him, you're gonna package him somewhere and get nothing for him, which would be a waste because right with what's gone on with those 2 and what their advanced billing is, you coulda got a lot for those guys. So, they need to do some horse trading there or find a way to get these guys some opportunities to play, which is not gonna be easy. You know, it's not easy to get either one of them into the lineup in any way, especially on a team that is DH central, which is what it is. You'd like to DH Judge a good amount of the time just to give him some rest. All right. Plus, he's got the arm issue, which you don't know if it's going to crop up or not again. We know he's a plus fielder when he's healthy, but you have a team that's just loaded. I mean, let's be honest. Judge would like to spend some time at DH. Stanton is a DH. That's all he is. Rice is DH. I mean, I understand he's not on this team, but he's a DH. That's what he is. He's a good hitter and doesn't really hasn't proved yet that he really has a position. And so far, Dominguez is a DH. Just like Vientos is a DH. He's not a fielder. He's a DH. He's a power bat. And that's just the way it is. And, you don't wanna cast these guys into these roles at a young age, but sometimes that's what they are. They're just hitters, and you have to realize what you have. Alright, let's get to some, emails now. One question, one comment. Let me say this. For those of you excited about St. John's getting ready to play UConn, and I don't know about Jackson's injury. He's always yin and yang out of the lineup anyway. Uh, Obviously, Connecticut's gonna want to return the favor. They'll be favored, but they have got 2 distinct problems in their matchup with St. John's. Now, St. John's got the same problems they always have. They have a couple of guys who in the backcourt who you need to get three-point production out of, who are very erratic from 3, despite their numbers, very erratic from 3, and there's gonna be times where he'll get angry at Jackson for not boxing out, not playing defense well, uh, making a dumb pass. And Sellers, who has to be see, I can live without Jackson having a starring role on this team. I don't think they can survive without Sellers being a major part of it. Because they need in the tournament, you are going to need someone who can make that 3. And that guy on this team was gonna get the minutes is Sellers, and he has got to shoot more. I understand what gets him into the doghouse and gets him pulled out of the game. They're not great defenders. They're just not. They've improved, but they're not great defenders. And he wants the quality of that defense. And the defense has been sensational. Now, you'd like to cure all the ills. You can't. You'd like to wave a magic wand and have Mitchell shoot. If Mitchell could shoot, he'd be an All-America. He'd be a top NBA prospect. The guy has got an NBA game, except he can't make a shot. He can't make a free throw. He doesn't try to shoot a 3, thank God. He won't make his free throws, and he doesn't even finish around the basket. He never shoots 50% from the floor. I mean, he gets so many easy opportunities that he blows, but the rest of his game is terrific. I mean, he has incredible skills, except he can't shoot. He's really made a big difference on team, and he's a key guy in a big way. But he can't, but if he doesn't dunk the ball, he's and even then it's not automatic. Hey, but in the matchup, you guys got 2 distinct problems. Number 1, that 3-headed forward monster. Those are 3 men. They're big and strong. They're powerful. They're relentless on the boards. And unless Danny wants to play a lineup he doesn't really want to play, it's trouble matching up with them. The other problem, which is a bigger one, is dealing with the St. John's defensive pressure because UConn turns the ball over way, way too much, as we know. I mean, Zamari's got a lot of talent. He's an NBA player, but he turned the ball over 9 times in the game that St. John's beat them at the Garden. 9 times. I was there. He has had other games. Now, I wanna see tomorrow night how much on the ball responsibility they give him or whether they actually utilizing other people and utilizing, obviously, solo ball. Do they want him to handle the ball a lot less than he has? because of his turnover propensity, and, Darling made him look bad, and Darling can get in your kitchen. I mean, listen, he's a pain in the neck, man. He really is, and he can turn people over. He does a terrific job of getting on somebody's dribble, and he did that to UConn to distraction. So, I actually think it's not crazy. UConn deserves to be favored, and UConn, you know what the deal is. St. John's has gotta play great defense on the perimeter against them because you cannot let them get hot from 3 and get wide open threes because 'cause they're gonna make a million of them. They can kill you. They can have 4 guys who can bet among the 4 of them can make 20 threes in a game and shoot 55%, and then the game's over. They can shoot it. That freshman can really shoot it. But Caravan will do what he has to do. He hangs around, but takes the shot that he needs to take, makes the play that he needs to play. They obviously gotta keep Reed out of foul trouble. They might have to go to a little bigger lineup, but they have 2 problems. 1, dealing with St. John's three-headed forward monster on the front line, and number 2, dealing with the St. John's defensive pressure when they turn the ball over as regularly as they do. Now, you see, St. John's, and Rick knows this, you'd rather you'd rather be a 7 than be a 4 or a 5 seed. Why don't you wanna be a 4 or a 5 seed? Because you're gonna get the 1 on the weekend. You don't wanna get the 1 on the weekend. So you wanna right now, St. John's is probably this morning a 4. They desperately wanna get to a 3. They can't get to a 2 this year. They don't have the resume, and they can't get it in the Big East, and even the wins over UConn, even 2 more wins over UConn, 1 to Wednesday night and then 1 in 2 weeks or 10 days, whatever it is, in the Big East final, would not get them a 2. But they could get to a 3 if they ran the table. First of all, they'd have won a lot of games in a row. Secondly, they'd have beaten Villanova and UConn again. Uh, they would get to a 3, and that would get them off that line where they gotta play the 1 in the second round. You don't want to, okay, get into the you don't want to, in the 3rd round, play that 1. You wanna get off the 1 line is really what you're trying to do, okay? Because you're a 4, you got the 13, then you got the 5, and, the first game's a given. I mean, we all know that. The second game is your first real game, and then you're into the regional semis, and you get the 1 in the 3rd game. It's not what you want. You wanna stay away from that 1 seed at least. Listen, you gotta play them in a regional final if somebody doesn't knock them off, but you don't wanna play them until that regional final. You wanna get that extra game. You wanna get away from that 3rd round game, from that conference. The first thing you wanna do is win the first 2 games. I understand that, okay? And St. John's could beat I mean, if they were lining up, I would rather they were down farther and were a 6 or a 7, and they would catch anybody but those top couple of teams. So you wanna stay away from Duke and Michigan, especially. There's some really solid teams out there. Iowa State, which you've seen already, Illinois, we can go down the list, okay? Houston's lost 3 games in a row now, but look where they had to play. Look at the teams they played. It's not surprising they lost. They're on the road playing those teams. They're gonna it's hard to win those games. They lost a 10-point lead at Iowa State. They come back, they have to play, another big team. Then they got it last night. They have to play Kansas. At Kansas, you know what Kansas's record is on big Mondays in their building? They've never lost. They're like 42-0. They've never lost. I understand they got a crazy thing going on with this Peterson, but they've never lost. But if you're thinking, and let's be honest, let's be realistic now. Rick's done a great job with this team. Team is from where they were in late November to where they are now. They've pretty much, without being perfect, and they can't be because they have some holes that they can't fill, but they have done everything you could ever ask them to do, including beat UConn in game 1. Now, because the Big East isn't great this year, they didn't get off to a great start in their non-league games. They didn't build up a great resume to get up to the 2 line this year. Now, let's be realistic. Last year was a bit of disappointment, losing in the second round to Calipari, or losing in the second round to anybody, but especially to Calipari. It was a bitter loss, no question, in what went on. Obviously, how the game unfolded. They went 2 for 22 from 3. Their best player had a nightmare. I mean, we all know what went on. But right now, St. John's fans are all thinking the same thing. Let's get to a Final Four. Let's get this team to a Final Four, and this team now can be a Final Four team. There's no reason to believe it can't. They're ranked 15th right now. We'll see what happens after they play UConn and Villanova in the next week. They have a chance to be a 3 seed if things go great. Now, the way this year is unfolding, the power of those top teams, and the team that is tricky is Kansas because you don't know if Peterson's gonna be there or not be there. If he's there, they're a different team, but you don't even know game to game or inside the game what he's gonna give you. But when he's on his game, he's a handful. He's a top pick. He's some people call him the best prospect to come out in 10 years. But what's going on with this kid and why he's sitting out so much, and a lot of people are blaming it on the agent and the whole relationship and all the I don't know what's going on there, but we all know he has a tremendous amount of ability, and that makes Kansas very dangerous when they're on their game. I think you've seen now with Arizona stumbling a little. I know they've been a little injured, but Arizona stumbling a little with Houston, which is very dangerous, stumbling a little. But the league at the top there is so good. They're all beating each other. There are a real good handful of teams, but I think you've seen that Duke and Michigan are a little cut above right now, and you want to stay away from them the best you can. You really do. And if the goal is, each game is a big step forward. You wanna stay away, if you can, from seeing that 1 seed as early as the 3rd game. You don't really want to. And what you consider what I call the 2nd game for this reason. The 1st game, let's be honest, I don't care who they play, they're gonna play a team they're gonna beat up on. That's all there is. We know that, okay? Patino's not gonna lose in the 1st round. That's not gonna happen to the team. They're gonna overwhelm with their size and their strength. Got 3 men playing up front and with their pressure and everything, they're gonna beat that 1st team. The 2nd game is always a tricky game, we all know that. But what you don't want is you don't wanna be staring at that 1 seed as early as the 3rd game. You really don't want to. And that's why I'd like to if you'd like to get up to the 3 where you're gonna get a tough team. I'm not saying you're not, but you can stay away from Duke and Michigan as much as you possibly can. You might be in their bracket, you might not. You might have to face them in a conference final, or maybe they get picked off. I mean, every game that they have to play before they meet you gives you a chance. And I think this year, if they go out in the 2nd round, people are going to be disappointed. The 3rd round, it really depends on who the matchup is against. If they get to a conference final, I mean, that to me, let's be honest, if you know the NCAA tournament, that is the game. That is the pressurized game of the tournament because in college basketball, unless you are like UConn was a couple of years ago, where it was a championship or bust, any team that gets to the Final Four has had a great season, and then you try to win a championship. But if you've gotten to the Final Four, especially if you have a program that hasn't been there in a very long time, if you can get to a Final Four, you bask in that glory. I mean, you win your first 2 games, you're in the Sweet 16, you bask in that for a couple of days, but then if you get knocked out and you're a favorite in that 3rd game, it's still a rough go. When you can get through to the Final Four, you have your success. It's it. Unless you're a special, special team, just getting there is a great accomplishment, and it means it makes the season, and that would make this year for St. John's in a big way. Now, if they get their hearts broken in a conference final, in a regional final, you can live with it. I mean, it's not go but this team has to win a couple of games. That's why you want to get as high as you can early, and that's why these wins would be important. Now, like I said, I don't think they can get above a 3. I think most likely they're gonna be on the 4 line unless they turn around and beat UConn twice, which is not gonna be an easy chore. But if they beat see, I think UConn now, especially with that loss at home to Creighton, I think UConn is probably gonna be a 3 also. I don't think they're gonna be a 2, I think they're gonna be a 3. I think you have a good chance that the highest St. John's can get is 3, and I don't think UConn can get above a 3. I guess if they won this game and then were very dominant in the Big East tournament, they could maybe sneak into a 2 if somebody collapses. Like if Houston turned around and lost 3 more games in a row or something like that. But for the most part, there's a handful of teams above these guys now, and the Big East is not gonna let you climb like you're gonna climb in some of these other conferences. I mean, there's some really solid teams out there, and they're beating each other is all they're doing. Like that Duke-Michigan game the other night. Hey, Duke wins it. That's fine. Didn't hurt Michigan at all. I mean, everyone knew that that game either way was 2 teams that have kinda separated themselves. So, I mean, they're both those 2 teams are ones, we know that going in, and those are the 2 teams you're looking to avoid if you can. So that's why you wanna stay off you'd like 3 if you can get it rather than 4, but it's gonna be a tall order. I think more likely you're sailing towards a 4, which would mean playing the 1 seed if everything goes according to form in the 3rd game. So, we'll see how it unfolds, but this season has gotten very interesting for St. John's, and that will be a fascinating game tomorrow night. I think the first game back at the Garden, and it was very much a Garden crowd that night for the first time in that whole rivalry since Pitino's been here. That was the first time it was really a straight Garden crowd. I told you where the program is headed and the support it's getting, but that game was more about St. John's. This one's more about UConn. If St. John's loses a tough fight here, you're gonna say, "Get ready for round 3." If they win, hey, winning streak, the whole thing, now we're rolling, now you're thinking big things. But this game is more about UConn this time to answer what St. John's showed them in game 1. Handling St. John's physicality and size with the big 3 forwards and handling their pressure defense because they turn the ball over all night long. UConn will shoot it. They'll shoot it better than St. John's from 3, 9 times out of 10. And that's why St. John's getting some productivity. You know, even in these games where they've been impressive, they have these offensive lulls that just make you wanna smack your head. They need more consistent outside shooting, and that's something that's gonna come and go with this team, and in the tournament, that can finish you. You can't win this tournament without making threes. You cannot do it. Let me get some emails in, and then we will bid you adieu. Here we go. All right. Remember, send them to MikeFrancisPodcast@gmail.com. Steven, did you think that A-Rod was lying to you when he was in your studio that day? I've been asked that a few times in my life. I didn't know. I thought there was a very good chance, yes. But I asked the question like 10 different times and I implored him. I said, listen, this is going to follow you forever if you don't tell the truth. He didn't. He didn't tell Katie Couric the truth. He didn't tell me the truth. We know that. We know how it unfolded. That day, did I know one way or the other? I didn't know for sure. No. How would I know? I just, all I could do is ask the question. And I asked it on multiple occasions that day. Jordan, do you think that OG and Bridges are overrated defenders? No, I don't. I think they can both be very, very efficient defenders. Um, Let me say this because OG's not the issue here. It's Bridges' personality to back off. It's his personality to accept the lesser role. That's just who he is. And I know people are very disappointed in what they get from him. And at times, especially in big games, I get annoyed at his passivity because I know how talented he is. But on that team, with those players that they have now, with Brunson there and Cat there, they are not going to ask him to carry an offensive load unless something is very unusual. But if you remember, there were critical times when he's made plays on defense, made plays late in games, and even made shots when he hasn't taken a shot all night or made a shot all night and then made a shot down the stretch. He is highly capable. And the people who, oh, we traded him for this and he's that and he's this and he's that. I understand that people expected more, especially when he went out and did what he did with the Nets when he was there. If you needed him to score 25 points a game, he would do that. This is a player who, if you need him to play a role where he'll score 15 points, he'll do that. And if you need him to score 25 points, he'll do that. And he's capable of both. As far as them on defense, I do think they're both very quality and efficient defenders. Doug, I watched Alonso smack a homer in the first spring training game. So did I, as a matter of fact. I happened to turn it on at the right time. I just can't fathom how the Mets did not prioritize bringing him back. Listen, Stearns has a belief about certain players and about what he wants from players. And he thought that Alonso was a budding DH. Now, where he, I think, undervalued Alonso was this. Alonso loved playing in New York, and that is a highly, highly prized thing that a lot of players don't handle well. He also showed up and danced every dance. I don't think that Stearns has grasped how important that is. So I think even grudgingly, although he doesn't like, he's of that school where I want better defense at first. I also don't want an aging, slowing down, right-handed, slugging guy long term. And that's why he stayed away from that. Um, it's too bad the way the Alonso thing worked out because you know what? He actually loved it here, and the fans obviously love him. He will do great in Baltimore. That is a great park for him, a great place for him. I think he'll hit 40 home runs this year without any question. Ashley, who is the best player you've ever seen at their given sport in their prime? I think the player who dominated his sport, and lifted himself above everybody else at a higher level without any question, where his performance was head and shoulders, and he knew it, and they knew it, and everything else was Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is better at golf than anybody I've ever seen in any sport do their sport. I don't think anybody did their sport as well and as efficiently and as dominantly as Tiger Woods played golf. And Jack Nicklaus was so great that he almost was the same level as Tiger, but I think Tiger week in and week out was actually a little better because Jack was a committed family man, and I think that took away. And I go with what Lee Trevino told Dog and I in an interview once. He said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "People didn't realize that Jack would run home on a Thursday night, fly home, watch his kid's game, fly back, play a major, fly back on Friday night, see a game Saturday morning real early, and then go get ready for his tournament." The bottom line is, he said if Jack hadn't had a family commitment and been a doting father, nobody ever would have beat him. And I believe that. And he also said the only thing that could ruin Tiger would be a bad marriage. He was right about that too. Those were two very prophetic things from Trevino. Um, Tiger Woods was better at golf in his prime than anybody I've ever seen at anything else. Next in line would be Jordan for this reason. Jordan was such a master at dominating his opponents and beating them before the game even began. He beat them mentally before the game even began, and he owned them. And Van Gundy used to warn his players about this. Don't talk to him before the game. Don't get involved with and, "Oh, Michael talked to me," or, "Oh, man, he's my friend," and this and then he's gonna go out and rip your heart out. It's all part of his scheme. Russell admitted doing the same thing to Chamberlain. He said he couldn't deal with Chamberlain, so what he used to do is he'd soften him up, and it worked. He was much stronger mentally than Chamberlain was. Otherwise, you had no chance against Chamberlain. Quinn, what was the best era of NFL football in your opinion? A lot of people love the '70s. I would say I really loved the I would say from '85 to 2000. See, I love the Steelers and the Cowboys in the '70s. Roger, Terry, those games, 35-31, 21-17, both Cowboy losses in the Super Bowl. Brokenhearted, Roger trying to make comebacks. Roger came from 35-17 down and scared the heck out of the Steelers, where the Steelers were, like, worried on the sideline when it got to 35-31. And in the other game, he actually hit Percy Howard in the end zone with the ball and could have actually won that game. Um, that was great football, great teams. But I loved those giant teams of the late '80s, the '90 team. I mean, I enjoyed watching the '90 team, but I can think of games like the when Eli beat the undefeated Pats. I'll never forget that game as long as I live. No Giant fan will, but I was fortunate enough to be in the building and actually had Archie sitting right behind me. My wife and I were in the loge, and Archie was in the first seat of the luxury box, which there was only like 6 or 7 rows of seats in the loge, and then there was a luxury box, and Archie was sitting in the front of the luxury box, so he and I could talk during the game, and, uh, it was fascinating. being able to see the game through his eyes during that game and, the performance in that game. And I still think back to late in the game, you know, uh, certain plays to this day. The 2 games that stick in my mind the most, the 2 I was at that stick in my mind the most was the wide right forever game in Tampa, and the other one was, the Giants knocking off the undefeated great Patriot team in the great upset. Those 2 games, great Giant victories, great Giant upsets. Think about it from a Giant standpoint, as you look at it now, as a Giant fan, and you're now have a rekindled optimism and hope and can't wait for this season with John Harbaugh and everything that's going on. Young quarterback after what has been a dreadful last decade. But think about what you've experienced as a Giant fan. You've been to 5 Super Bowls. One was a Sunday afternoon in Tampa you'd rather forget. Awful game. I mean, the Ravens just gave the Giants their back of the hand. And even the dreadful defensive holding call, which drove George Young nuts, it wouldn't have mattered. They were so much better. And they were so dominant at that point that year. Um, but the other 4 games, the first one at Pasadena was one where, let's be honest, they were lucky they were only down 10-9. They could have been down much bigger. They then made the comeback and dominated the second half with Phil having the brilliant game. But the other 3, you have them knocking off as an underdog a then considered unbeatable Buffalo Bill team that won against the Raiders 51-3 in the AFC title game. And then the 2 wins against Tom Brady and the Patriots that changed football. Those are 3 unbelievable Super Bowl experiences. First of all, the Giants have won 4 of their 5 Super Bowls. Secondly, 3 of them are unbelievable upset victories. And one is about as big an upset as the sport has ever seen, and one that is, ranks right with Joe's Willie's win against the Colts, and is as important. It changed the sport. There's no question. If that Patriot team goes undefeated that year, their legacy is so much more dominant than it is. Eli Manning kept that team from having been just an absolute juggernaut. The Pats have been to 12 Super Bowls as a franchise now and won 6 and lost 6. Interesting, huh? Won 6, lost 6. Lost 3 without Belichick. Vrabel lost. They lost 46-10 to the Bears, and they lost with the Parcells team with Bledsoe to Green Bay and Favre and Holmgren. And then Brady and Belichick won 6 of 9. So 6-6 as a franchise now. The Giants are 4-1 in the Super Bowl. Would you rather be 6-6 or would you rather be 4-1? That's an interesting question. Would you rather be a Montana in the Super Bowl or Terry Bradshaw, 4 wins, 4 shots, or have as many wins as Brady has but have some losses? Interesting. Always an interesting discussion. I guess when it comes to the Super Bowl, you take as many wins as you can and run away, even if you've had some losses. We'll see you later.